Ask 10 experienced shooters whether the 357 Magnum or the 10mm Auto is the better cartridge, and chances are you'll hear 10 different answers, most delivered with absolute confidence. The truth is, both of these rounds have earned legendary reputations, and both are surrounded by just as many misconceptions as facts. One was born during an era when law enforcement needed more power to defeat the barriers criminals relied on. The other was developed decades later by a firearms innovator who wanted a semi-automatic pistol cartridge capable of delivering exceptional performance well beyond typical handgun distances. Today we're putting opinions aside and comparing these two heavy hitters, category by category, to answer one simple question: which one actually comes out on top, and which deserves a place in your gun safe? The 357 Magnum came first, making its debut through Smith & Wesson in 1935. Its name is derived from the Latin word meaning great or large, and it quickly lived up to that reputation. Engineers created it by lengthening the .38 special case just enough to prevent it from being accidentally fired in older .38 special revolvers, making the design both more powerful and safer. Its purpose was straightforward. Law enforcement agencies needed a handgun cartridge capable of penetrating car doors and other forms of cover that criminals increasingly used, and existing revolver ammunition simply wasn't powerful enough. The 357 Magnum answered that need and soon built a reputation that extended far beyond police work. Hunters and outdoorsmen quickly adopted it as well. Thanks to its ability to use bullets in a wide range of weights and designs, the 357 Magnum became one of the most versatile revolver cartridges ever introduced. The 10mm Auto arrived decades later with a completely different objective. Colonel Jeff Cooper, one of the pioneers of modern defensive handgun shooting, admired the .45 ACP but believed there was room for something even more capable. He envisioned a cartridge slim enough to hold a substantial powder charge, while launching a heavy bullet with enough velocity to remain highly effective at extended handgun ranges. That concept eventually became the 10mm Auto, first chambered in the Bren 10 pistol. Although the pistol gained widespread recognition after appearing on television, manufacturing issues kept it from reaching its full commercial potential. Colt later helped preserve the cartridge with the Delta Elite, and in 1989, the FBI officially adopted the 10mm as a duty round. The downside quickly became apparent. Full-power 10mm ammunition generated more recoil than many agents could comfortably manage during extended training, leading to reduced power loads that ultimately evolved into an entirely new cartridge, the .40 Smith & Wesson. While the 10mm gradually disappeared from law enforcement service, it found an enthusiastic following among civilian shooters, particularly hunters, hikers, and anyone who spends time in the backcountry. From a design standpoint, these two cartridges couldn't be much more different, and those differences influence everything that follows. The 357 Magnum is a rimmed cartridge, making it perfectly suited for revolvers, because the rim keeps each round securely positioned in the cylinder. The 10mm Auto uses a rimless case, which is exactly what semi-automatic pistols require. A rimmed cartridge inside a magazine can interfere with feeding, so rimless designs are the standard for modern semi-autos. The 357 Magnum fires a 357-inch diameter bullet, while the 10mm launches a wider 40 caliber projectile. In general, that means the 10mm is sending a larger and often heavier bullet downrange. The 357 Magnum also uses a noticeably longer case, giving it slightly more internal powder capacity, even though industry pressure standards allow the 10mm to operate at higher chamber pressures. None of those specifications automatically make one cartridge superior. They simply explain why each performs differently once you begin comparing them in the real world. Recoil is another area where opinions often outweigh facts, especially among experienced shooters. Let's be clear from the start, neither of these is a light shooting cartridge. Both produce substantial recoil, so nobody should expect either one to feel like a mild range round. Recoil is largely determined by bullet weight and muzzle velocity. Looking across a wide selection of common factory loads, the 10mm Auto typically produces around 9 foot-pounds of felt recoil, while the 357 Magnum averages closer to 10 foot-pounds. That's a relatively small difference, and many shooters would struggle to identify which cartridge they're firing without seeing the firearm. What usually matters far more is the handgun itself. A heavier firearm, such as a full-size Glock 20 in 10mm or a long-barreled Smith & Wesson, .357 Magnum Revolver absorbs more recoil before it reaches your hands. For shooters dealing with arthritis, reduced grip strength, or sore wrists, that can make a noticeable difference. By comparison, a lightweight snub-nose .357 revolver often feels considerably sharper than a full-size 10mm pistol, even though the overall recoil energy figures are fairly close. If comfort is high on your priority list, the size and weight of the handgun you choose will usually have a greater impact on your shooting experience than the cartridge itself. Velocity is one of the few categories where the advantage can shift depending on the exact load you're shooting. In general, the .357 Magnum has a slight edge because it can be loaded with lighter bullets. A typical 110-grain .357 Magnum load can reach around 1,300 feet per second, making it one of the fastest commercially available handgun cartridges. The 10mm Auto, on the other hand, is most commonly loaded with heavier bullets in the 170 to 180 grain range. Those heavier projectiles, combined with slightly less case capacity, usually result in somewhat lower muzzle velocities than comparable .357 Magnum loads. When it comes to penetration, both cartridges perform exceptionally well in the ballistic gelatin testing commonly used to evaluate duty ammunition. Because of its higher velocity and lighter bullet weights, the .357 Magnum can sometimes penetrate farther than necessary, particularly with non-expanding ammunition. That's exactly why high-quality jacketed hollow points are so important. A well-designed expanding bullet helps control penetration while maximizing terminal performance, instead of allowing the projectile to continue traveling beyond the intended target. The reality is that both cartridges were originally designed to meet demanding law enforcement standards, and today both provide more than enough penetration for realistic personal defense situations. Now let's address the most controversial topic in the comparison: stopping power. This is where debates often become more emotional than factual. Despite countless claims made over the years, there is no definitive scientific evidence proving that either the .357 Magnum or the 10mm Auto consistently delivers superior stopping power. Much of what people repeat is based on personal preference, isolated experiences, or long-standing reputation, rather than measurable data. What history does support is the outstanding reputation of the 125-grain jacketed hollow point fired from a .357 Magnum. For decades, it has been regarded as one of the most effective defensive handgun loads ever issued. The 10mm Auto has built an equally impressive reputation in a different role. Paired with pistols like the Glock 20, it has become one of the most trusted semi-automatic handgun setups for backcountry protection in places like Alaska, where reliable penetration and dependable performance against large wildlife are highly valued. But regardless of which cartridge you choose, one principle outweighs every ballistic statistic: accurate shot placement matters more than caliber. A properly placed hit with quality defensive ammunition is far more important than a slight difference in muzzle energy or bullet diameter. Even the most powerful handgun cartridge cannot make up for poor marksmanship. Magazine capacity, however, is one category where the difference is obvious. Most .357 Magnum revolvers hold 5 or 6 rounds. That's simply the limitation of the platform. A few uncommon semi-automatic pistols have been chambered in .357 Magnum, including the Coonan and the Magnum Research Desert Eagle, but they're specialty firearms that very few shooters actually own. The 10mm Auto was designed specifically for semi-automatic pistols, giving it a significant advantage here. A full-size Glock 20 carries 15 rounds, while the more compact Glock 29 still offers a 10-round magazine in a much smaller package. Think about that for a moment. A compact 10mm pistol can carry nearly twice the ammunition of many full-size .357 Magnum revolvers. If magazine capacity ranks high on your list, whether for home defense, backcountry use, or simply having more rounds available before reloading, the 10mm clearly wins this category. Ammunition cost is another consideration, especially for shooters who spend a lot of time at the range. Generally speaking, budget .357 Magnum practice ammunition is often slightly less expensive than comparable 10mm loads. At the premium end of the market, high-performance defensive 10mm ammunition can sometimes cost a bit more than premium .357 Magnum loads. That said, the difference is rarely dramatic. Both calibers are available in affordable training loads as well as premium defensive ammunition, and their price ranges overlap considerably. Depending on the manufacturer, bullet design, and current market conditions, either cartridge can end up being the better value. In other words, ammunition cost alone shouldn't be the deciding factor when choosing between these two. When it comes to hunting and backcountry protection, both cartridges have earned excellent reputations, but they shine in slightly different ways. The 10mm auto, especially when chambered in the Glock 20, has become one of the most respected semi-automatic handgun combinations for wilderness carry in places like Alaska. Its combination of deep penetration, reliable performance, and fast follow-up shots has made it a favorite among hunters, hikers, and guides who spend time in bear country. Beyond personal protection, the 10mm has also established itself as a legitimate hunting cartridge. In many states, it meets legal requirements for hunting white-tailed deer, proving that it's capable of far more than defensive use alone. The .357 Magnum has an even longer and more established history in the outdoors. For generations, it has been a trusted choice for deer hunting, especially when paired with a lever-action carbine. The longer barrel squeezes more performance out of the cartridge, turning it into a lightweight, easy-to-carry hunting rifle that's capable well beyond typical handgun distances. Because of that legacy, ammunition manufacturers offer an extensive selection of .357 Magnum hunting loads specifically designed for game like white-tailed deer. Hunters have decades of proven ammunition choices to pick from, making the cartridge incredibly versatile in the field. The .357 Magnum can also serve as an effective option for bear defense when loaded with hard-cast bullets. That said, many experienced outdoorsmen still prefer stepping up to something like the .44 Magnum when they expect a genuine possibility of encountering large bears. If your priority is versatility for hunting and general use in the woods, the .357 Magnum earns a slight advantage thanks to its broad selection of firearms and purpose-built hunting ammunition. If maximum penetration from a semi-automatic handgun is your primary concern, the 10mm auto remains one of the strongest performers available. Now let's look at something that often gets overlooked. Which cartridge is the better choice for older shooters? If you've been shooting for decades, you already know that hands, wrists, and shoulders don't always cooperate the way they used to. That's a practical reality worth considering. Neither of these cartridges is particularly forgiving. Both generate serious recoil, and neither is what most people would recommend for a beginner. The .357 Magnum offers one major advantage. A revolver is mechanically simple. There's no slide to rack, no heavy recoil spring working against your grip, and the manual of operation remains straightforward regardless of the model. For shooters dealing with arthritis, limited hand strength, or reduced finger mobility, that simplicity can be a major benefit. The trade-off is recoil. In a lightweight revolver, full-power .357 Magnum loads can feel sharp and uncomfortable, especially during longer range sessions. Reloading also takes more time and practice than swapping magazines in a semi-automatic pistol. The 10mm auto has strengths that are just as important. A full-size 10mm pistol distributes recoil across a heavier platform, making it feel smoother than many lightweight Magnum revolvers. It also offers significantly greater magazine capacity, reducing the need for frequent reloads during training or defensive situations. Its biggest drawback is slide operation. Most full-power 10mm pistols use fairly strong recoil springs, and racking the slide can be difficult for shooters with arthritis, reduced grip strength, or shoulder injuries. Full-power ammunition can also become tiring after extended shooting because of its sharp recoil impulse. If simple operation is your top priority, a heavier .357 Magnum revolver is an excellent choice. If you'd rather have higher capacity and a recoil impulse that's easier to manage in a full-size handgun, the 10mm auto deserves serious consideration. There isn't a universal winner. The right answer is whichever platform best matches your hands, your strength, and your level of comfort. After comparing these two legendary cartridges side by side, one thing becomes obvious: neither one is objectively better. They were designed for different firearms, created in different eras, and built to accomplish different goals. Even so, they remain surprisingly close in nearly every category that matters. The .357 Magnum offers decades of proven real-world performance, outstanding versatility, and the straightforward reliability that revolver shooters appreciate. The 10mm auto brings modern magazine capacity, excellent penetration, and a well-earned reputation as one of the best semi-automatic handgun cartridges for backcountry carry. In the end, the choice comes down to one simple question: do you have more confidence in a revolver or a semi-automatic pistol? And which one can you shoot accurately when the pressure is on? Because impressive ballistic numbers don't mean much if the firearm doesn't fit your hands or your shooting style. So where do you land in this debate? Would you stick with the time-tested 357 Magnum, or do you think the high-capacity 10mm auto takes the win? Let us know your choice and your reasoning in the comments below.